Welcome y bienvenidos to Presently Aquí, a podcast created just for you, a place to find tools, insights, and gentle guidance to nurture your self-love journey. Together, we'll connect with extraordinary healers from around the world, uncovering the wisdom and unique gifts they share to help us lead healthier, more loving lives, beginning with ourselves. And today I have Jill Sitnick. Hi, Jill. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for today's conversation. So, everyone, I know that, even my opening, right? I always have healers, but today is a special treat. We're going to have someone who's been healed in a way that it might not be mainstream, but for most healers, we know we use different tools. And this amazing woman's come on to share her remarkable story. So, I want to introduce her to you. Jill is the founder of the Journey Sage, an educational platform that demystifies MDMA therapy for PTSD. Lots of initials, we'll get to those. To help dispel the stigma of psychedelics for mental health. After a lifetime of unprocessed childhood trauma, Jill found healing through psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy and became an author, educator, and YouTube advocate for MDMA therapy for PTSD treatment. And that sounds like a healer to me. In March of this year, she will achieve her third coaching certification through Thirdwave Psychedelic Institution, and she is actively planning her first psilocybin retreat in the fall. See, I said, sounds like a healer to me. Welcome. Amazing. Okay, so per usual, we're gonna get into just a few breaths together, and then we're gonna start this beautiful conversation. So please get into a comfortable seated position. If you're driving, skip this, forward it. But for everyone else, close your eyes or put your eyes in a low setting and sit with yourself. So the first deep breath, we're gonna just feel our bodies. Just feel what it's like to be in our bodies right now. The next deep breath, we're going to feel what it's like to be in our minds. Even if it's crazy and chaotic, just be with it. And the next deep breath, we're going to sit with our hearts. And if we're deep enough and get deep into this breath, maybe it has a message for you today. And as we continue taking some deep breaths here, just be with your entire being, your mind, your body, and your heart. And give thanks. And when you are ready, come back and slowly open your eyes. So I took too many deep breaths. I had to mute myself because I had a choking moment. I was like, really, that's happening right now? That's why I didn't even blush. Look at that.
I'll do a lot of talking.
That was like coming out of nowhere. Oh my God. So let's get into this wonderful conversation, which I'm so excited. So first, easy peasy for the listeners out there, what is MDMA? Just easy.
Let's just dive right in.
Just get in.
Most people will know MDMA as the party drug ecstasy or Molly.
Mm-hmm.
And in a therapeutic way,
Yeah.
it is dosed appropriately. So not necessarily a party
Right.
dose. When
Not a party dose. Perfect. Just want to put that as our top of the line. And tell us a little bit about you and your journey before you even met this wonderful psychedelic, how this childhood trauma space that led you here.
Well, I was somebody who in her mid 40s knew that she had a bad childhood,
Mm-hmm.
did not talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
had no idea it was really driving the Jill car. I really thought
Mm.
I was corporate girl, I was career girl, I was, succeed, 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 succeed. And I really had no idea that the trauma was the anxiety and the drive to succeed and the drive to be safe was
Right.
really from childhood trauma. I had no idea. I had no idea.
Mm.
In my mind, I had made it out alive. A lot of people had way worse trauma than I was. I was never in the foster care system, so I was like, oh no, I just
Right.
had great parents, right? And then my partner of more than 20 years passed away.
Mm.
And about 18 months after his passing, when the widow's fog started to die down,
Yeah.
I suddenly had a out of nowhere panic attack about a work email, like a silly little requirement. And very long story short, we can dive into it more if you want, but very long story short, I went back to my therapist who I had
Yeah.
hired to help me with the grief. And after months of talk therapy, of this panic attack not going away, feeling
Mm-hmm.
like there was just always something awful right around the corner. I was going to be homeless,
Right.
or I was going to lose my job. Like everything that couldn't really happen, my body felt like it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
imagine if you're afraid of heights and you're standing on the ledge and how your body's going to feel.
Right.
That's how I felt all the time.
Ooh.
And finally, I listened to my therapist. I read the book, The Body Keeps the Score,
Mm-hmm. A great book.
started to understand my symptoms for the first time,
Wow.
agreed with the diagnosis, and then I fell into this therapy because she was working to become a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist. I went and looked at the research at maps.org,
Right.
and I had the Cadillac of underground experiences. I had my trusted therapist and her
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
mentor at the time. So
Yeah.
it's the very condensed story of how I'm talking to you now.
Wow. I love that. And how many of us can relate to even that, right? The panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And I used to have them in my early 20s, also not knowing where it was coming from. Right? Because we just, like you said, we just throw it under the carpet, under the rug. Well, my childhood was not as bad. What do I have to complain about? I didn't, right? We're minimizing our trauma when it is a big deal because it's our own life. It's not comparison, right? You know that now. But
Right.
from people
Right.
listening, it's not about comparing. Your trauma is just as important as anyone else's that you perceive to be greater than. It still needs to it still needs to be seen and healed and brought to the light, right? In order for you to integrate it into yourself, right? So it's
Yeah.
beautiful that you were able to see all those things.
There's what I learned is that there is no hierarchy of trauma. Like
Mm-hmm.
trauma is trauma. If
Mm-hmm.
you have experienced trauma in some way, shape, or
Correct.
form, your body remembers. And
Right.
there's no, I always kind of thought there was a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There isn't.
There is not, right? Because regardless of the trauma, everybody's body's still gonna hold it, still gonna perceive it. The body's intelligence is still the same for everybody.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
ego is the one that makes it all different and like it's not that right? It's the ego. Like it's fine. I don't need a therapist. I don't need to go get healed. Like my parents spanked me a few times. It's fine. No, it's not. You know, it's really not. We know that now, right? But it
We know
takes
that now. Right. We know that
right.
now.
We are the generation that we what we thought was normal is not. It was never normal. It was unhealthy
Or
patterns
appropriate. It might have been
or
normal. It
appropriate.
wasn't appropriate, might be the way.
Yes, especially for the sexual abuse and in the
Oh,
family and all of that
yeah.
stuff that people are like, oh, that's fine. It's not. So, exploring the trauma space and I want to just highlight how important whatever the trauma you're going through, do not minimize it in any way, shape, or form because yes, it made you who you are today, but really find a mirror that can reflect, was that a good thing how you turned out because of the trauma? Did you do any of the work? Or is it something your mind is telling you, like, I'm better off, I'm good, I'm great, according to who though, you know? So
Yeah.
that's also important. So, how did the therapy as you're going, how did that turn your trauma become that PTSD? How was that diagnosed as that?
For a very successful type A person,
Mhm.
my PTSD evidenced itself with a feeling of lack of control, that the universe was always there to smack me down. The universe I was kind of hiding from the universe. So hypervigilance, stomach always upset, poor sleeping habits, constant
Mm,
rumination,
mm,
and a feeling of, think about you're running like a marathon and you
right,
haven't trained to run a marathon.
right.
You're just getting tired, and you're just seeing everybody kind of go ahead and nobody's helping, and you're just falling more and more behind. And the feeling that you're never going to hit that finish line, you're going to
Right.
kind of look out beforehand.
Yeah.
That's an analogy I use
Mm,
how the PTSD felt. I you can only say to your therapist a few times, if something else happens, I'm out. I'm done. The universe is won. For her to like she realized I was getting pretty suicidal at that point. And I
wow.
should
Yeah.
mention
Yeah.
I was on a Wellbutrin. Like everybody, a lot of times people will say, "Well, why didn't you go the traditional route?"
Right. Right.
I think it's important for people to know I was on Wellbutrin. I was in talk therapy.
Mm,
I got this diagnosis over a series of like 2 to 3 months because my symptoms were not going away.
right.
So I was actually doing the traditional route and just not finding success like a
Mm,
lot of people.
yeah. Glad to point that out. Very important because there's always a why didn't you as if they're healers, right?
Right,
Why didn't
right,
you?
right.
So, what led you into discovering MDMA assisted therapy? Because that's really
Yeah.
magnificent.
So when my therapist suggested it, first of all, my therapist is lovely. Like this is the
Mm,
last stereotypical psychedelic person you'd ever want to meet, right? Probably the way people see me, like I don't look like the stereotypes, right? So when she suggested it, I was like, no, no, I don't mess with my
right.
brain. My brain is the only thing that got me away from my parents. It's the only thing I'm not going to mess it up. I grew up in the 80s, I'm
Mhm.
showing my age, with the egg in the frying pan commercials.
Right. I remember those showing my
Like,
age as well.
yeah, it just wasn't a thing for me. I had tried ecstasy once in my adulthood and didn't even
Mhm.
really know what it was until after I tried it. So I was not on board. She was the one who said, at the time, MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, they had just completed the phase 2 trials where
Wow.
over 65% I was an
Mhm.
English major, so don't quote me on the numbers, like 3/4 of the people who went through the clinical trials no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis by the end of the third journey. And um, to be completely candid, because the Wellbutrin and the talk therapy alone
Mhm.
were not working and I was getting worse,
Right.
and I saw clinical research and it was with my trusted therapist, that's when I agreed to it. But it would be irresponsible for me to say like I didn't do my research, I wasn't with somebody I trusted, anything of
Yeah.
that sort. I fell into a very safe therapeutic environment here, and that's one of the things I talk about it in
Right.
therapeutic
Yes.
medical procedure way because that's how the
Yes.
experience was for me.
Yes. And I love that it's very important that it needs to come from someone who is the expert in the field, right? And that includes all psychedelics, not only MDMA, ketamine, and we have obviously the social drugs, mushrooms and
Feel free.
marijuana, which
Yep.
are as you know, society uses them as a daily thing, but in order for you to really tap into your trauma, right? To have someone really be there for you and help
Guiding
you,
you.
right? You can't do it yourself because you're also facing a lot of darkness. And you need
Well,
someone in there to, like your shadow aspects, right? That's you're going
yeah,
into your trauma, or you're looking at those things. And it's better to not be alone
there you go.
than,
There you
right.
go. There you go.
It's better not like you're sitting alone with your
Better.
shadows. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure I'll make you fall into deeper. It's better to have help. So I want to just point out, make sure you have help. Do your research. Um, ask around. This is why I'm doing this. For a lot of people who have these, I know a few people who have deep trauma in their body, and they've done a lot of these other things. They've tried other things, and none of things work. So I really wanted to bring Jill on and have her discuss her beautiful journey with it, and it might help someone out there. So how did this space shift your perspective on trauma healing?
Oh my gosh. So one of the things that you'll hear, especially around psychedelics, but with traditional talk
Mm,
therapy too, is the concept of reframing,
right.
that our perspective is what really runs us. And
Mm,
in a lot of ways, my therapist likes to say we are all children wrapped up in layers.
yes,
So
beautiful.
the perspective we see in life is actually through the lenses of a child, because
Mm-hmm,
that's where we learned about the world.
mm-hmm,
And so for me, and for a lot of people I've talked to who have also worked with MDMA, it is the process of reframing those childhood beliefs. And
mm,
I'll give you a very specific example.
yeah,
My father was a domestic abuser, and one of the prime memories I have of him hitting me when I was a toddler,
right.
when he threw me against the wall, he was punching
Mm,
me, and my
mm,
dad was like 6'2", 230
mm,
pounds
mm,
against like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old.
right, right.
The trauma or that toddler interpreted that behavior or that instance as the universe is against me, because a
Mm,
toddler cannot comprehend that its caretaker is hurting it. It's
yeah.
just a really weird, like you don't hear toddlers saying, I hate my father kind of thing. It's just like, oh, bad things happen. And so that perspective throughout my life of, oh, the universe is against me. The universe is bad. I've been bad. I'm going to be punished in some
Mm.
way. In one of my MDMA journeys, I went and revisited that memory and suddenly was like, wait a minute. Universe wasn't against me at all.
Yeah.
My father was a jerk. What kind
Mm-hmm.
of grown man beats on a child, right?
Right,
And so that perspective shift,
right,
changing the lens through which I see
right.
the world, it almost, for me, because of the amount of memories, traumatic memories, it
Mm-hmm.
almost happened memory by memory. Literally, the shifting of perspective per memory
Mm.
was the process of healing the trauma.
Per memory. That's
Per
powerful.
memory.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you have to per memory. It can't be just an overpassing of it because you really want to sit with it again and be with it and be like, oh, yes, what kind of man hits their
Process it.
child, but also he probably had a crappy childhood, got beat as
He
well.
did.
But it doesn't make an excuse. It's just more understanding the deeper layers that we can go into, right, all the way to our lineage. But we're here with Jill's moment. So yeah, we could go there, but but yeah, very important. Memory by memory, and you know what's coming up for me, and I feel the collective. It's scary, right? Memory by memory to go through each traumatic space as you have to heal it and acknowledge it. Um, did you have any resistance as you're going visiting these memories when you started your journey with the MDMA therapy assisted?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. I love this question. So resistance,
Mm,
I actually wrote an intention setting workbook because I
mm,
saw a lot of people going on like tourism retreats and not really being happy
yeah.
and the results because they didn't know they had to kind of do some inner work before you get there. And one of the things that happens even now with all the work that I've done, because I've worked with my PTSD and I've explored other medicines for trauma, resistance to healing shows up in, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous to do this. Oh my gosh, what's my life going to be if
Mm,
suddenly I
mm,
change my perspective? Am I, not going to have my work ethic? Am I not going to love people as much? What's life going to be like? The ever present, oh, I'm not good enough.
mm,
I won't get this right.
right.
Or the ever present, I'm too much and I don't deserve this.
Mm,
So, what I say to people all the time, usually before they're about to do a healing journey,
yeah.
there are some, and I'm going to use IFS language, there are
Mm,
some protectors that are kind of like, whoa, what are you doing? We're put in place to protect you,
Right.
and you're now going to kind of go in and mess with our system. So I kind of would love to normalize, and I wrote about this a lot in the book, and I have it in the workbook. If you're feeling some sort of resistance before a therapeutic journey, that's the direction to go. The path.
Mm-hmm.
It's not comfortable, it's not fun, but if you're sensing resistance in some way, that's the fire, that's the house, that's the
Yeah.
fire in the house to go in towards.
Mm.
So I thank you for, not a lot of people ask that question, but thank
Very
you for
important
that about that.
because it's and you're adding more to the body, more. So it's
Yeah,
I love that even more so because you're adding onto the body. Go, release that. Go, let it go.
yeah,
And it's important to acknowledge that the resistance that's there is important to also be seen. Don't
yeah,
resist the resistance.
not at all.
Don't do
It's
that.
there for a reason.
Right? Feel that and feel that it's normal. We all have that towards different spaces in our lives to
Yes.
feel a little scared, and it's good. The ego is there to protect you. It's going to do it. It's going to be like, hey, I don't know, because the unknown on the other side is scary because we don't know what that looks like, right? And it's okay. It's kind of coming back to the child. It's okay. It's okay that you're scared, but this is gonna help us, right? If you have to do that, do that. Like
Do it.
we're adults, but again, we're children. We've experienced our trauma when we
Yep.
were children, and we're still that until we are able to embrace the inner child and integrate it into our adult selves. So it's very important. So yeah, I felt that immediately while you were speaking. I felt even in me, well, I was like, okay, I guess this needs to be asked because super important. Uh, so as you were going through your healing and the memories and such, did you have any spiritual experiences? Meaning, like, were you outside of your body? Were you able to like be more of the observer versus the experienced person through each memory? How was that for you, spiritual wise?
So MDMA, that's a great question because MDMA works very differently than like a psilocybin journey, which
Mm-hmm.
to me would be incredibly spiritual. My first two MDMA journeys, the first one was in September, the second one was in December. Nothing spiritual, pure trauma, pure kind of starting to dig through the dirt of
Mm-hmm.
the childhood stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The third journey, we added a little bit of psilocybin. And so, because I came up against a real hard block, so they gave
Yeah,
me probably about a gram of psilocybin, really small
very
dose.
small.
And I kind of had some beautiful graphics. I still wouldn't
Mm,
call it spiritual,
right.
but the immediate days after that third
Mhm,
journey were
mhm,
incredibly spiritual.
mm,
So spiritual, in fact, I kind of called my therapist. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm getting a sense of my late partner. I'm getting a sense of ancestors. I'm getting a sense that there's a protection around me. And this was new.
right,
And,
right.
my therapist is as woo-woo as I now am. And she's
Mhm,
like, just go with it. It's all good.
mhm,
But I will say that subsequent journeys with other medicines, DMT, iboga,
mhm, mhm,
have enabled even more of that spiritual connection.
mhm,
My I should also premise this with I didn't go into this therapy, certainly was not a religious person, and I
right,
don't was not a spiritual person. So
right,
all of that was new to me.
mhm,
And what I think I'm learning is that whatever we kind of bring to the journey, that is also going to come out. So I wouldn't say to anybody, don't expect to have anything non-spiritual because somebody else might be already super spiritual before they go into the process. So
right,
don't listen to my particular healing journey and
right.
assume that that's the way it's going to work.
Oh, truly, right? Because everyone is in a different journey, and you could be religious, you could be spiritual, atheist. Who knows what your path is? But the common part though is that the experience that you had, it is, it is what would I call that? it is something that we will all experience if you do psychedelics. We will, it
In some
depends on
way.
the dosage. You might feel people that have passed, you might feel your ancestors, the beings of light. You know, the mushroom itself has its spirit on
Yeah.
its own. I myself do, only because I know how to do, I do my own healings with the mushroom.
Oh yeah.
And I'll sit at home and
Beautiful
do my,
medicine.
figure out the dosage, talk to the mushroom, and then I'll tell it why I'm here, what I need help with, and we'll sit together and, at the end of 4 hours, wiping tears and feeling, like another layer removed. But truly grateful to the magic that is, right? How they're even to blend, right? To just kind of help you a little push through the block, right? As you were saying, because, sometimes we will create, right? The mind is so powerful, create such barriers of like, do not enter kind of space. This room of like, do not enter. Like there's like barricades and
Oh yeah. I
right.
called it the folder that was closed for 30 years.
And then you got open and it's like, it's scary. So, how for your therapist, how does she prep you for the scaries, right? For the things that you're gonna face that you already
Oh.
know, right? You're going back to what you know, and even the ones that you forgot in. How did she prep you and make you feel safe to go into
So
those?
I agreed to the therapy in like March-ish. There's a lot of ishes here because I kind of forget the timeline. And I
What
think
drugs you do? No, I'm just
it
kidding.
was more like the PTSD part. Like that all got
Mm,
really fuzzy because my brain was, ugh, ugh. Anyway,
right.
uh, I weaned off of the Wellbutrin, and so my first journey wasn't until September. So all of that time was spent in talk therapy, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, whatever scheduling allowed. And we started digging in. The primary strategy that she used with me was the body.
Right.
Okay, so we're having a conversation, something's upsetting me. Okay, Jill, where in the body are you feeling it?
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
lot of times it would be in the throat area because as a child I wasn't allowed to speak up. So, okay, let's focus on the throat area. What is your body telling you?
Mm,
And for me, in those talk therapy sessions, 9 times out of 10, it would take me back to a specific age or a
mm,
specific memory. Like sometimes it was just a general age, sometimes it was a specific memory. And so we started to kind of, if you want to think about it, we started to till the soil. We
mm,
started to kind of, or I think somebody gave a great analogy of like we were sweeping the floor for a
mm,
couple of months, kind of getting all the nooks and crannies, getting the
mhm.
dirt out of the corners. And then the journey itself was actually a little bit of the actual mopping because we had
Right.
kind of
Mhm.
processed. I will say that she answered every dumb question I had.
Mhm.
MDMA is not like ayahuasca.
No.
You're not, it's an empathogen. That's why it's a party drug. You are
Mhm.
fully awake.
Yes.
You are aware of yourself. We
Mm.
voice recorded the session. We had a tech glitch on the second one, but we don't talk about that. We voice recorded the sessions,
Mm.
and I spoke during the sessions as clearly as I am speaking now. There's no slurring of words or anything of that sort. So she answered every dumb question. And
Mm.
what I learned, and this might help other people, is that if you have a tremendous amount of trauma like I did, the
Yeah.
first journey is all about learning about the medicine and learning about the process
Mm.
and learning that the people you're with can be trusted.
Yes.
My inner child didn't trust adults.
Yeah.
And when you're in an MDMA journey in a therapeutic
Mm.
environment, your subconscious, your inner child is like right there, front and center, kind of going, no, 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 who are these people? And so I have been told since, they didn't tell me this in the beginning, but I have now learned since that that first journey for people who are deeply traumatized is all about learning about it, feeling safe. You'll start to see the effects, but then the subsequent journeys, when you kind of understand what's going on, you progress faster.
Mm. I love that. I
Yeah.
also noticed you wearing red, which is the root chakra for safety. So look
Is it my
at you.
color? I'm in autumn.
No, you're pronouncing even here. because I talk about colors, we don't choose them. You just subconsciously like, oh, this look good with this, and what this is today. But really, it's what's where you are right now, right? Your root chakra is so fortified. It's like I am here. I'm like, oh wow, the work is it's deeply into, how I like the garden better, like
Uh-huh.
your garden, right? We're digging the roots of the weed because it takes forever to get out those roots of the weed that
Uh-huh.
has traumatized you, and now you've gone so deep that now you're able to trust what's growing in your garden
Oh,
versus, right, you're just like, what is it? It's back again. Oh my, it's back again, and that's our trauma. It's back again. We're not dealing with it, and we're not asking experts, right? I'm not a landscaper. I need you to come and help me. I don't, this weed keeps coming back and I can't get it out, and help me, right? And you're like, again, right, mistrust of strangers, and it's a real thing. Our
of
child
adults.
of adults, right? Of adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
There's something about empathetic witnessing as a
mm,
child, if you, and this is where it's important that the how the trauma starts or happens is not nearly as important as the support system you have.
mm,
Because if you have an empathetic witness, someone to hold you,
yeah,
cuddle you, tell you everything is going to be okay, kind of like normal parenting should be,
yes.
that empathetic witnessing can really thwart the holding of the trauma because you're
Hmm.
able to release it, you feel safe. The MDMA journey process, therapeutically, with two facilitators, usually a man and a woman, they are the empathetic witnesses
Hmm.
where you're kind of processing again and learning that the world is a safe place.
Yeah, yeah. I've taken MDMA, so I know what it feels like. It really shoots down into your heart and makes you just blah 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 blah. I just I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, the person I was with, I told them like, well, I didn't need to take this. I'm already. I'll ask me anything you want. But it was good to because I still wanted to understand because it was such a popular thing. I never did it for
Right.
parties. It was in here in my apartment, and but to that's also what interested me in asking you to come on because I know what it is. I've never used it for that. I've used other things. I've done DMT. That was truly helpful, and it's the same. So you do it right, but for me, it was months later of opening and opening the after. It's the after effect, and you're just like, oh, you need assistance not during, but after,
I would say
all
also,
throughout,
when
right?
you're talking therapeutically, I would say all
Also
through.
all throughout, you
Yep.
need that because there's no one around you that knows these things and what happens except the expert healers. You needed that. I wish I had someone for the after part,
Yeah.
because I didn't, and I just figured it out through my own research.
Hmm.
And having someone there, it because you're so delicate and vulnerable after in the after. It's like you're so raw. I feel like just like, oh, I feel everything, and I don't know what that means. Even just as simple as like, I don't even know what that means, but what do I do with that? Right? And you want to be guided,
I
and
do it.
what do I do with that? Right? And you don't want to remove the safety of the work you're doing because that's what will bring you back. You want to keep having facilitators, healers there to keep holding your hand until you're like kind of like riding a bike, right? Until I got it. I
Yep.
got it. You don't have to hold it for me.
If you think about the neuro, so I'm in Thirdwave psychedelic coaching program, and they talk a lot about the neuroplasticity. And I wish I wasn't just an English major. I wish I had a scientific mind to understand this more, but I don't.
Mm,
What I do understand is the opening of the neuroplasticity window that
mm-hmm,
psychedelics allow. And
mm-hmm.
so for me, the time period after the the integration period, so the months, the days, weeks, and months in between or after my MDMA sessions, integration, I'm growing new neural pathways. I'm making more
Yes.
connections. In my journals, I probably repeated and wrote about things 5 to 10 times because if you think about the way that our brains learn,
Mm-hmm.
we learn through repetition.
Yes.
So it was almost like I was untangling a trauma knot by kind of working at it, working at it, working at it. And the value of having a therapeutic relationship
Hmm.
is that person out there going, yes, keep unknotting. Yes. Or
Mm-hmm.
helping you unknot those
Mm-hmm.
things faster or getting a perspective
Right.
because you are learning a different way of thinking about your life and your
Yes.
perspective. And so having someone there solid, so your choice of the person with whom you work is super important.
So important.
Um, because they are, you know what, there was somebody that said something about, the integration time after a psychedelic experience is like wet paint. And
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
don't want somebody to come around and put their hand on your wet paint. You
Mm-hmm.
want somebody to be there to support you, to get the fan over to the wall, or, to just kind of wait with you and
Yeah.
talk through it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's super important to think about.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for sharing that. And the neural pathways is it's repetition, right? So if we're
Mm,
not creating new neural pathways, we're repeating the trauma in many ways, right? This is why people are like, why do I keep attracting the same lover?
right.
Until
Yeah.
you clear that path and start a new healthier pattern, you keep doing that, whatever trauma that may be. So yes, these psychedelics help us let go of heal it and let go and start new neural pathways. There's a great book by Jill Bolte. Oh my God, what is the name? Jill
Oh
Bolte
my
is
God,
the
it's the
author.
science book.
You're gonna love it. It is remarkable because she had I think my stroke of insight. She had a stroke, and it debilitated her left side, right?
Oh.
And so she was already a scientist. She was already in that field. So she didn't, so she did a bunch of experiments. Okay, if half of your brain still works, neural pathways are still able to be created on one side of the brain, what's to say that I can't create new neural pathways on the other side that forgot all those neural pathways? And it was a remarkable, very long journey for this woman. Very
Mm,
long. Just a great story for anyone out there. Jill Bolte, Dr. Jill Bolte. And she was able to come back a lot. Like she's not 100%, but I think she's at a 80, 90, and use her left side. You know what I mean? Just
our brains have the capacity. The research in the last, what, X number of years, I can't even, because
yeah.
I'm not a scientist, I don't follow it. But the realization that we actually can change the neural pathways and
Hmm.
make the very fact
Yeah.
that you can learn something new at any age
Hmm.
should have clued us in
At
that we
any
can
age.
build new ones, but for whatever reason, we didn't
Yes.
really get that.
Yeah. No, we don't know because they don't want us to know that at age 70 you could go back and get another PhD. Yeah, you totally can.
You
But
can,
you
you can.
totally can.
That's what you want to do.
You can learn all so many, like in 100 years, if we get to live 100 years, we can study so many things, learn so many things. But I have my theory is because I've observed this, and sadly it is true. But most people at age 35, they hit that medium of 35 and they just settle into that life and don't expand any further. And they just keep it as where it is, which is really interesting being in mindfulness, right? It's just ever growing, ever expanding, and we're always learning. Um, but for those of us, right, that we've passed that threshold and still, right, even for both of us, we're still like, what else? And you're like, no, I want to be the therapist now. How amazing. Right. And here I'm like, no, I want to teach kids now they need mindfulness. So it's just we're now there's so many of us pushing the envelope of like it doesn't stop here, it doesn't stop at this age, it doesn't ever stop. The brain only goes into these spaces of disease because if you don't use it, you lose it. It's a muscle.
Same thing
And
with your body.
same way
You have
with
to
your
move.
body, it's the
Keep moving.
same. It's this. So you have to really, so it's really important. So I wanted to ask you, now that you've gone through this remarkable journey, how did the facilitators or therapy help you apply what you're learning in your daily life? How was that a normal new space for you? How did you integrate, right, for your now new life of like, this is me now.
Well, I will tell you that people will say to me, well, how do you know that you no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis? Like, how did you really know?
Yes.
And for me, it was believing I actually had a future. That
Mm-hmm.
before the treatment and even midway through the treatment, because it was a year, 3 journeys, September, December, May.
Hmm.
That was not a fun year. That was a lot of tears, a lot of going towards painful stuff.
Right.
And after, I would say, a couple of days after my third journey, suddenly I was no longer afraid of the future. I was looking forward to the future. I
Mm-hmm.
was starting to have the ability to feel joy. And
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's had PTSD knows that it just robs you of joy. It robs you of laughter in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I love your question about how is what I learned through the process kind of still going on? So I continued to work with medicine after I no longer qualified for the PTSD diagnosis. Over the next 2 years, I worked with my doctors 2 additional times with psilocybin
Mm-hmm.
because I no longer, my body was not in that
Mm-hmm.
trauma state. So I was able to get a little deeper. And it was all about fear. Like my father really kind of terrorized me. So there was a lot of fear to process. And then both of my doctors moved out of my immediate area.
Mm-hmm.
And I then started to experience other medicines with psychedelic tourism. And no matter what, I always come back to my therapist and the body.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going on when I'm getting triggered.
Yes.
Um, I get triggered a lot by like super, super needy people because that was my mother. And so I've
Right.
I've
Mm-hmm.
recognized that trigger because I actually start to feel uncomfortable. Like I get a spidey sense. My body feels uncomfortable. And so I'll be like, oh, okay, what's going on? And I just kind of center myself. And very honestly, usually a picture of my mother comes up. Um, but doing that, that is now a normal practice. I will say I am still in a therapeutic relationship with my therapist. We're just long distance. And there are some times where I'll come on a call and I'll be like, I'm triggered. I tried
Mm-hmm.
to get in my body. I can't figure it out.
Right.
And she does need to guide me. And that
Yeah.
just means that that was kind of a painful memory. Something's really going on.
Right.
But I would say 50-50. I can now do a lot of it on my own. Maybe 50-50 is a tough one. Maybe 80-20. 80% of it I can do on my own, but like
Mm-hmm.
occasionally I'll hit something,
Right.
be like, we need to talk about this. And then, but it's the same
Yeah.
process.
Same process.
Same
And
process.
what is the overall time from the moment you started the therapy till today?
Oh, it was during the pandemic. Look at me not, oh my
Mm.
gosh, I'm the worst person with dates. Um, yeah, it was 2020 because I published the book 2021. So it was during the pandemic.
Wow, look at that. Look at you. I'm so proud of you. And not only that, but just like you want to help others now because of your experience.
Oh yeah.
And that's
It was,
remarkable.
I was devastated when the FDA delayed approval.
Mm-hmm.
It was, well, we could talk a whole bunch about that, but
Right.
anyway, I was devastated because I know firsthand how this can help. Australia has already approved it,
Nice.
and the VA, once the FDA's delay came across, they didn't not approve, they just delayed. The VA immediately started fundraising for them to run their own clinical trials.
Very good.
So I feel like we're a little bit on a hamster wheel because we already kind of know this works. I do appreciate the research to continue to refine how it can
Mm-hmm.
work better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with all of that said, incredibly disappointed that we have a solution that can work for a good majority of the people with
Yes.
PTSD.
Yes.
Nothing works for everybody,
Right.
but we have a potential solution, and
Right.
it's still not in place. So that disappoints me.
Yeah. But I feel that you're still learning, right? You're still in the process of getting um, certified, right? You were
I'm
saying,
always learning.
right?
Always learning.
Because you also want to be able to help people do this for themselves, right? So I feel that maybe by the time you're done with the certification and being ready to help other people, that'll
Now, my certificate, I actually just submitted all of my content in.
okay.
what I'm working on is retreats. Like I can
Your
absolutely,
psilocybin retreats, yeah.
yeah, I can sit with people, I can
Yeah.
facilitate. Um, I am a coach, I am not a therapist, so I don't really work with
Right.
people who have a diagnosis kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm establishing retreats, so much fun for, those folks that are kind of like where I am now. You've
Yeah.
done some work, you want to keep doing some
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you're at a block in your life, or you're just kind of trying to make a decision. Or somebody once said to me, Jill, I just need to clear all the cobwebs out.
Right.
So that's kind of my direction moving forward.
Yeah, beautiful. So that's the future of the journey sage.
Yes.
More retreats. And tell us, obviously the book is about your story, right? During
Yep.
this process. Is that the main focus of the book? Is your
Yep.
journey with the MDMA? Beautiful. So anyone, what is the name of your book?
Rescuing Jill.
Yeah.
And uh, if you have experience with abuse, you'll get the book because it's literally just, the only way to kind of explain how the therapy works
Mm,
is to unfortunately tell you some kind of unpleasant childhood
right.
memories. And I find people who had really good childhoods, they find the book repetitive. They're like, oh my gosh, she's talking about her father again.
Right.
I'll
But
warn everybody,
right.
that's what you're facing.
But that's what goes on in the brain. You're repeating
That's what
that.
went on with the brain.
Hmm. You
Yeah.
just can't un the child can't let go of that trauma. So
No.
it's all it knows is that the trauma space. So it's
When
gonna.
it's the untying of the knot
Hmm.
is a little bit repetitive,
Hmm.
and that to make the story as the therapy happened versus good to read, that's what you get. You get a little bit of the repetition.
Truly, truly. I love that. Again, I've said this very few times, but there's certain people that I meet where I do feel compelled to say, I'm so proud of you because I can feel everything that you've gone through. I can sense it as an intuitive, and it's just like, wow, that's so remarkable. But here you are. We're human, so of course we're not going to be perfect all the time, every day. And we're, having the awareness of like, hey, I need help with this one is a big deal. And, you have someone you can ask help. That's also so important, right? For us to like, hey, today was a great day and I had a blip and it's okay, but mostly it was great and I accomplished XYZ, right? So it's
Yep.
just giving the wins, right? The little incremental wins that lead to the big wins. But
Agree.
truly, what a remarkable journey. And if anyone out there really wants to get into the nitty gritty of her story, get her book. And I love the name Rescuing Jill. I felt like your inner child created that title, like totally.
Yep.
Hmm. That
That
was,
was the third journey was me being rescued from my childhood home.
yeah. See, I felt that. I felt that. I was like, oh, that
Yeah.
was totally her. I love that. So, moving forward with new hope and joy for the future,
Yep.
what do you see for yourself besides the beautiful retreats, the things that you want to offer for others, but more for you?
I am an educator at heart. I love explaining and chatting and
Mm,
teaching. So I did a little bit of shifting with my YouTube channel, but I'm working. I like that still is a huge
mm,
passion.
yes.
So between the retreats, between that stuff, and honestly, once it does get approved, like it's going to get approved in the
Yeah.
US. I just
Yes.
don't know when. I anticipate probably speaking a lot more because people will be like, well, what is this? Who,
Right.
what is this? And we'll need more people, like more veterans who have gone through the treatment.
Mm,
We'll need more
yeah.
voices like mine to kind of explain what it is. Because if we follow the normal capitalistic model that we have in
Mm-hmm.
the US, there will probably be some really outrageous marketing claims, 10
Right.
out,
Right.
10 years of therapy in 8 hours, which in some ways it is, but people have to understand this is not a turnkey
No.
solution. You have to work at it, because you've worked with medicines. Like it's not,
Yes. It's
you can
not.
get amazing insights first, but then you got to
Mm-hmm.
work with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want to be that voice to kind of
Yes.
not to temper expectations, to explain the process. Nobody expects to run a marathon after getting knee
No.
surgery,
Right,
right?
right,
So you
right.
shouldn't expect instant healing after this process. You have to work at it.
I love that. I love that. It's beautiful. What advice do you have for anyone who is highly curious to this process?
Yeah. Go to the MAPS, maps.org. Not only will
Mm.
you see their 3 clinical trials, you'll see the trials that they are working on across the board.
Mm.
You can do a simple internet search because MDMA, LSD, and psilocybin all have FDA breakthrough designation, which is really what is supposed to speed up drug development.
Yeah.
So the FDA has recognized that psychedelics in certain environments with certain, guardrails,
Hmm.
uh, produce results around depression, anxiety, and PTSD that are not being seen with existing medicine.
100%.
So do an internet search, go to clinicaltrials.gov, and you'll
Mm.
see over 200 um, clinical trials there. You'll find once you start looking at this information, it's there. And I actually created I get this question a lot. So I actually created like a psychedelic research 101 course that I'm going to be kind of launching
Mm.
email sequence soon because people
Oh,
ask that. They're like, well, I'm really curious. My uncle
yeah.
Joe, he's got some
Right?
depression. So
Hmm.
that little mini course is going to
Ah,
be there for people.
that's gonna be amazing. Look at you. Ah, I love this conversation. It was beautiful. I can't wait for anyone who listens to this and may need it for their family, for themselves, and by the time this is released, I'll have Jill's information, her website, and I'm gonna add the maps.org also for anyone
Yeah.
as well, because that's important, and then the clinicaltrials.gov as well. So I'll
Yeah.
add those little things, and truly, thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey and being vulnerable and you're just what I feel is that you're just so ready to be seen and it's so inspiring. Truly, I am just over the moon for you and what's to come in the future of everything that you've gone through and being able, right? Because that's what it is. Our pain is our teacher, and that's how we teach others. Like, hey, I went through this. I can guide you, I can help you. I am a product of what happened, and this is where I am now, so I can show you the hope on the other side.
Got it. That's the
Right?
whole point.
That's the whole point, and you did it. So beautiful. Amazing, Jill. I can't thank you enough. Any last words before we leave you today?
No, I want to thank you for a delightful conversation. It's always more helpful in these chats when the host has experience with medicine.
Mm.
So I want to thank you for also sharing your experience. So this has been a lovely chat. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
same. I truly appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
And to the listeners, thank you for collaborating with us and share this with anyone that may need it. This is a time, it's such an important time of our lives to undo the unhealthy patterns and start stepping into our healthiest lives. And thank you all. And remember that the breath is the secret and always lead with love. And until next time, we will see you then. Thank you.